Life before the foster care system. Wow. Uh, well, I imagine it was actually pretty nice. I don't remember. I was 2 when I was taken out of my home for being underweight. Um, but from what I remember, my mom loved me very much, so there was no reason for me to leave my home. Since then, I think I was just part of the system. Since then, I had social workers and counselors and people coming to my house checking up on me. So that messed with me. I was very shy, low self esteem, very quiet, and never really understood why. I just thought it was just part of my nature. I only remember certain glimpses. I remember they had a dog. I remember a lady, and I think they had other kids in the home. But I remember I wasn't treated very nicely. If they wanted me to stop crying, they would cover up my mouth and my nose and tell me to stop. I was 2 years old at that time. When I went back to live with my mother, um, it was it wasn't a very good experience because I remember having to go to court a lot, and she was really stressed out, and the whole family was very stressed out. Actually, I remember my sister was acting out because she wanted some attention since I was getting all the attention, and it was starting to become a dysfunctional family. My mom was too stressed out. My sister wasn't getting the same amount of attention that I was getting, and I think we all knew it. So she rebelled pretty bad, and she was very abusive towards me. I never really understood why until now as an adult, when I really have a different perspective and I can think about it more objectively. But she was very, very hurt by the fact that my mom just didn't give her the same attention as me. She was abusive towards me and towards my mom and towards herself. She was a very unhappy child. The family remained dysfunctional all the way up until my mom died when I was 15. Throughout this time, my sister was really abusive, sexually, physically, verbally. She was also a miserable child growing up. I I remember telling her once that if I wouldn't get in trouble for it, I would certainly kill her if I had the chance. And she told me that she would do the same to me. I was terrorized by her and terrorized by my neighborhood, which was just plagued with gangs, just a horrible environment. My experience at school was just horrible. It wasn't a nurturing environment for me. I was the most picked on kid in my school. Didn't really matter which school I was at. I was always moving from school to school, but I allowed it. I didn't know anything else. I actually contributed to my abuse at school. I needed somebody to talk to. I needed somebody to be honest with. But I simply couldn't be honest with my mom or my big brother from the agency Big Brothers Big Sisters program. Because I didn't have a dad, I was able to have a big brother. I wasn't able to be honest with him either. I always had to put my best foot forward with these people, while silently hiding all the ugliness of myself that I thought I had back then. By the age of 12, I attempted suicide. I cut my wrist right here. It's a 2-inch slice there. It's 20 or around 20 stitches. I cut through the tendon, cut through the brachial artery, hit the bone. So it's a pretty serious cut, and was watching all of the blood from my body spill out. When I was convinced that I was going to die, I realized that I wasn't the product of what had happened to me, that I could still change. That's when I really learned to really appreciate myself and really appreciate life. At that time, everybody in my house had had a life-threatening situation, had been picked up by the ambulance and always came back. I cut my wrist at the age of 12, a suicide attempt. I came back. My sister once got a really bad fever. She almost died, and she came back. And another sister of mine had, I'm not sure what it's called, but she was in a wheelchair, and for sitting too long, her I guess the flesh died, and she had to have it cut out, and an infection spread to her body, where she almost died. When my mom was complaining of pain in her belly, she assumed it was an ulcer or something. She tried all sorts of different remedies and homeopathic remedies, and just all other things that superstitious people were recommending for her. She didn't have any insurance, and she never went to the hospital. She probably never would have gone to the hospital if she didn't just pass out one day out in public. When she went to the hospital, they told us that she had a tumor in her liver, so we thought that's okay. They can maybe just cut that out. But they were actually just being nice. It was actually cancer, and she had less than 3 months to live. From that time on, I watched the cancer eat her alive. She was under constant pain. Didn't matter how much morphine she was under. She was just in agony. So I can't imagine what was going on inside of her, but it was a vicious whatever was happening in there. She was constantly throwing up, just vile mucus and black stuff. She couldn't keep anything down, and she was so weak by this time that she couldn't get out of bed. And me and my sister had to bathe her, feed her, give her shots, make sure she had enough medicine. It was around this time that I had my last few conversations with her, and I think she did very good there. She left me with some great advice that I think will serve me for the rest of my life. She taught me about forgiveness and happiness, and taking responsibility for your own actions. She called my sister into the room, and by this time we weren't sure that she was going to die yet, but I think she knew for sure. I think she felt it, and she told us to always stay together, and that we now will only have each other. And that was the last time we spoke. She then fell into sleep, and 3 weeks later she passed away. She hadn't been eating anything or taking any of her medicines at that time. So one night at 3 a.m., the hospice volunteer that was in our house woke me up and said, "It's time." And I got up and I looked at my mom. She still looked like my mom. Went over and touched her. Her hands were starting to get cold. Her fingers were now starting to become stiff. Rigor mortis was starting to set in, and I held her until all that warmth went away. I closed her eyes and lied there with her until they came and picked her up. I don't know who came, but somebody in a white van came, put her on some plastic and metal sheet right there in front of us, picked her up by the sheets like sort of like a hammock, and treated her like a corpse right in front of us. I had no other family. She was a single mom. She was illiterate. She didn't have any friends. She never left the house. So we were left with a really poor foundation when it came to being with other adults. We really depended on her. So yeah, once she passed away, I was basically homeless at that time. I basically was couch hopping for a while, for about a month, just going from acquaintance to acquaintance, that we knew from school or teachers. People were helping us out. After a while of just going from place to place, a few months, maybe 2 months of just going from house to house, I moved down to LA with the only family member that I knew, which was my uncle. And um, that didn't turn out too well. So after 3 months of that, I went into the children's shelter in Santa Clara County.